Hello students, today we are here on this new platform and we will discuss chapter number 2 of the book First Flight. So students, as we were having lessons on WhatsApp, but today we are here on the YouTube. So students, this is a chapter of class 10 from CBSE board and chapter 2, Nelson Mandela, A Long Walk to Freedom. Students, in this lecture we will cover unit 1. For our convenience, I have divided this chapter into 3 units. So this is the first unit that we are going to discuss today. In this chapter, we are going to read about Nelson Mandela. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Nelson Mandela, who was born on 18 July 1918. This chapter actually is an extract, and this extract has been taken from his autobiography that is entitled as A Long Walk to Freedom. The inauguration ceremony was held in the lovely sandstone amphitheater. Sandstone is a kind of substance of which it is a kind of marble stone. So the ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater, which was formed by Union buildings situated in Pretoria. Nelson Mandela here is filled with a sense of honor. So students, today we are going to start the explanation of paragraph number 1 that begins with 10 May 1994. So 10 May 1994 was the day of the inauguration, when the inauguration ceremony was held. And what happened on this day? On this day, Nelson Mandela and few others were sworn in as their respective seats of honor. So Nelson Mandela recalls the day, and he says that the world leaders and the dignitaries of the world had been coming over to him to pay their respects to him, because he was chosen or elected to be the first black president of South Africa. Nelson Mandela further moves on to tell us that on this day he was accompanied by his daughter Janani, and he also tells that it was one of the world's largest gathering on the South African soil. What kind of gathering it was? It was a rainbow of different colors and nations. Rainbow of different colors and nations means the people from different nations, especially the world leaders, means the politicians or the dignitaries. So the world leaders who belong to the different nations. Nations here means different flags. So this was one of the largest gatherings of the international leaders that South Africa had ever witnessed. Nelson Mandela then tells us that that day was a memorable one, because it was an honor in the history of South Africa that the South Africans, especially the black people of South Africa, were considered as outlaws. They were not given equal rights. So students, here Nelson Mandela begins his historical speech. It is the addressal that he makes in front of his people. He begins his address with the words, "We all of us do by our presence confer glory to the newborn liberty." Confer, the word confer here means to give. So Nelson Mandela wants to say that it is the time when we have established a government which is fairly and freely elected. And this government is meant to provide equal rights for all the people of South Africa under the same flag. There are 2 types of people in South Africa, whites and non-whites. So later Nelson Mandela says, out of the experience of the extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long. What is extraordinary human disaster? Nelson Mandela compares extraordinary human disaster, or he wants to say that the extraordinary human disaster is the policy of apartheid, because of this cruel policy of apartheid, the people of South Africa, especially the non-whites, had suffered a lot, and that is why this cruel system is referred to as extraordinary human disaster. So this extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, Nelson Mandela says, out of the experience of the extraordinary human disaster must be born a society of which humanity will be proud of. What kind of society must be born? Means he wants to say that after all the sacrifices that the people of South Africa have made, finally they have formed a government of which all the humanity of the world will be proud of. Why will the whole world be proud of it? Because it is for the first time in the history of South Africa that such a democratic and non-racial government has been formed, and this government is fairly elected as well as freely elected. So students, during the last phase of this unit number 1, we come to know that Mandela refers to the incident when he says that they have achieved their political emancipation. What is political emancipation? Political emancipation means earlier they did not have any rights. They did not have rights in politics. They did not have rights in economics. They did not have any rights in any other fields of the society. But now, after this formation of the government, this democratic formation of the government, they have achieved their political emancipation. Means they have got a stand on the world's stage. He moves on to say that we pledge ourselves to liberate our people. Liberate here means to free our people. From what? From the continuing state of bondage, poverty, deprivation, and other kinds of discrimination. At last, Mandela assures his people and his country that never, never shall this beautiful land face oppression from one man by the another. He says that this beautiful land will never ever face any kind of discrimination. So students, with this, unit number 1 ends. Let us summarize something, whatever we have read in this unit number 1. In unit number 1, Nelson Mandela especially talks about the inauguration ceremony which was held in Pretoria, the Union buildings, and this extract has been taken from Mandela's autobiography, that is A Long Walk to Freedom. And in the beginning, Nelson Mandela talks about the date, 10 May 1994, and why he calls this day Autumn Day. I have told you this. And later on he recalls how on the day of inauguration he was accompanied by his daughter Janani. And I have not mentioned a few people. There is Thabo Mbeki, who was sworn in as the first deputy president. Later on there were others. You can read about them in the paragraphs in the text. So students, there were a few vocabulary words which I have erased from the board now, but they would be available. So you have to write the meanings and you have to memorize them. So students, this is the unit number 1, and in the next lecture we will discuss unit number 2. Thank you.